Let's talk about an update on the Russian kidnapping story. The president of Russia, not only the president of Russia, but I believe the head of, it says it later in the article, but her title is very pretentious. There it is. Russian Presidential Commissioner for Children's Rights, Maria Lovova. Both of them are wanted by the International Criminal Court. There was a warrant out for the arrest of both of them for the kidnapping of about 19,000 Ukrainian children, a very large amount of Ukrainian children. What that means is that technically, if you're an International Criminal Court adoptee, if you have adopted the International Criminal Court and Putin was to come to your country, you'd have to help, according to what you've signed, them arrest Putin. Now, in actuality, many governments would probably avoid doing that if they were put in that situation due to the potential backlash and maybe even threat of military provocation from the Russians if they were to actually follow through on that warrant. But that's just to show that the evidence for this is unbelievably overwhelming. And it's not just the International Criminal Court that has called this out, but multiple human rights groups, reporters, journalists, the Ukrainian government. The evidence is overwhelming. But the hope was, and my hope was, that after the International Criminal Court put the warrant out on Putin for the kidnapping of these children, and I know there's some people who try to defend the kidnapping of these children by saying, no, they're not kidnapping the children, just taking them and relocating them to safety because there's a war going on. I just want to quickly dispel this because, number one, that's not how it's supposed to go. That's not how procedure works. How it's supposed to go, and this is how it's dictated to by international law, is that if you get children during war, like if children become in your possession and you a nation that you are occupying and you need to take care of them, you send those children to a neutral third party. For example, like Turkey. You don't take them, deport them to your country, and then put them in schools where they learn the Russian language, that Ukraine is fake, etc., yada, yada, yada. That is not how it's supposed to go, which is why they're being accused of kidnapping. Definitely because many of these children were taken during the Russian retreat. That means that territory is about to be liberated, so Russian soldiers would go to local orphanages, take as many children as they could, as orphanage staff hides the children in their closets in their homes so the Russian soldiers don't take them, and they try to grab as many children as they can and retreat with them. Literally looting children as they retreated. I know people make fun of the Russians for looting washing machines and phones and TVs. The most evil thing they've looted is the future and youth of Ukraine. But the hope was that with the International Criminal Court warrant and with all of the attention on Russia kidnapping children, because of how gigantic that headline was, President of Russia wanted for war crimes. Wow, that's a big story. The hope was that this amount of attention would stop Russia from doing this anymore, that they would stop. That's the first thing. And the second thing was that the diplomatic pressure that comes from this International Criminal Court warrant would pressure the Russians from them saying like, dang, I can't go to this country, I can't go to this country, because they would be pressured to arrest me and they don't want to deal with that pressure, so this is undercutting my diplomacy. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it when it comes to how Russia looks, and it's not worth it when it comes to our diplomatic efforts. So that was my hope, and that was the hope of a lot more people. Sadly, the Russians have continued with their deportation of Ukrainian children, and they have continued to deport and kidnap, if we're being honest about what it is, kidnap Ukrainian children. And Kiev Independent is reporting on this as 450 Ukrainian children have been deported, according to the Ukrainian Military National Resistance Center. Let's read the article. Russian forces have deported another 450 Ukrainian children from Russian-controlled territory, Ukrainian Military National Resistance Center reported on August 17th. The center said 50 Ukrainian high school students were deported to Russia's Yaroslav, 250 kilometers northeast of Moscow. Russian teachers will likely try to convince the students to continue their higher education at the state university in Russia, the center reported. Another 200 children from occupied Luhansk, 150 from Kherson, and 50 kids from Zaporozhye were deported to summer camps in Russia's southwestern Kandahar region. Now, when we say summer camps, a lot of these are like patriot. I don't know how to describe it really, but imagine there was a summer camp in the United States, but you went there to sing American patriotic songs. Like you all just kind of like yeah, it's a Yankee Doodle Dandy, and you like sing patriotic songs and learn patriotic Russian nationalist version of history, engage in a lot of, you know, kind of like physical activities, like, you know, like obstacle courses, stuff like that. That's what these locations are like, which is why they're often described as brainwashing. Ukrainian children in these camps are shown Russian propaganda and made to attend activities such as concerts with, okay, well, why do you even say it if the, okay, because concerts with Russian patriotic content. They often do not return home from these Russian camps, according to the center. Okay, when they say that, they mean that they never return home to their families, or they have yet to return home to their families, or be given back to their families, and they're kept in the camps, not that they are like killed or anything, even though mistreatment of the children has been reported by returning children. The conditions in Russian hotels, summer camps, and recreation centers for Ukrainian children are frequently poor, according to a report by a coalition of Ukrainian NGOs that documents Russian war crimes. More than 19,500 children. See, another 500 children added to that number. We're only 500 away from 20,000 kidnapped children. You know what's really interesting to me? I see so much passion online for child trafficking from conspiracy theorists. And there are people who are genuinely interested in child trafficking as well. But I see so much from the QAnon types. I see so much from a lot of people who are really hardcore in the MAGA crowd. I see so much attention to that. And yet so little from these groups, so little care is given to what is happening right now with the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the mass kidnapping of children. In fact, I've even seen some try to defend the Russian invasion by saying that they're invading Ukraine in order to break up the child trafficking operations. Completely bogus, complete nonsense. But I've had that said to me while I was on right-wing talk shows when the callers started calling in. Meaning those narratives are getting to people somewhere, even if they're completely bogus, and the even slightest amount of research would disprove that. How the United States actually dumped quite a lot of money in the early to mid 2000s. I think it was actually mid to early 2010s into fighting against child trafficking after the collapse of the Soviet Union. But that's a story for another day. Only 300. Oh, wait, one second. Let me finish. More than 19,500 children have been identified by the Ukrainian government as having been deported, although the actual number is likely much higher. Only 386. Only 386 of these children have been brought home to Ukraine, meaning that just this last batch of children that got kidnapped, just this last batch of 500, is more children than the entirety of the children that Russia has given back to Ukraine of the ones that they have kidnapped. Meaning that the kidnapping of Ukrainian children is not just continuing in Russia, it is escalating in Russia. Russian Presidential Commissioner for Children's Rights, Maria Lvova-Belova, claimed on July 31st that 700,000 Ukrainian children had been taken to Russia since the start of the full-scale war. Now, that is a gigantic claim, 700,000 Ukrainian children. I don't know if she means in relation to this program. I would imagine this would just be anyone living in Ukraine who is a child and has come to Russia, not children that they've, like, government soldiers have come and taken from orphanages and ran away with. The International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants in March. Okay, yeah, so it's just reporting on what we've already said. So what does this mean? What this means is that the arrest warrant was insufficient to deter Vladimir Putin from continuing the kidnapping of Ukrainian children, and that the situation around children's rights in Ukraine continues to be extremely critical in an extremely precarious and dangerous state, even though the attention that it's getting has never been less since the arrest warrant has been issued. The attention on the kidnapping of children has completely gone away as people have stopped concentrating on this. But it continues, even if the world has stopped paying attention. And you want to know what really sucks is I had to just go into the daily updates of the Kiev Independent to find the story. I didn't find the story because it jumped in my feed. I didn't find the story because CNN published an article on it. I would actually, let me check. CNN, kidnap children, Ukraine. Let's see if they have published anything recent. Okay, it doesn't. On news? No. No, it's from a month. The last thing is from a month ago when the Belarusian Red Cross helped the Russians kidnap children. But no, the only reason I found out about it was because I saw that the Kiev Independent released their daily update, and I try to absorb as much information about what's happening on the daily, and I just so happened to read that report. That's the only reason I even know about it, which just shows how little attention this issue is getting.